It's not often that Pete Buttigieg faces hard questions when he goes on mainstream media shows, but we've got a bit for you here, and it involves his difficulty in generating enthusiasm amongst young voters. Take a look at how he responded to these questions.
You have talked about a new generation of leadership, and if you became president, you would be the youngest president in history. And yet you don't have a majority of young voters in this country, according to polls. Is there a way in which you're out of touch with your own generation?
No, but it is certainly the case that often younger candidates tend to attract more support from older voters. But we are building a coalition that's going to draw voters from every part of this country. Now, certainly
you're at 3% and 4% among people under the age of 44 in South Carolina. It's almost as bad as minority voters. What explains that gap?
Look, there's going to be a continued process to earn support across the coalition. But it's certainly the case that many of the younger voters are more attracted to, for example, the Sanders campaign definitely has more young voters. I was a big fan of Bernie Sanders when I was 18 years old. It's also the case that we are pulling together a coalition to talk about issues like climate, to act on issues like climate and guns and the economy, that the longer you're planning to be here, the more you have at stake. And young voters have to mobilize in a way that hasn't happened before if we're going to be able to defeat this president.
Did you notice what he said there? What was that? What was that? This little mean girl storyline. Like, I liked Bernie too when I was 18. I've since learned so much. Okay, we can learn a lot by how you've changed since you're 18 when you wrote that glowing portrayal of Bernie Sanders. But he's is there any interpretation of that is not young voters are dumb and so they support stupid people? When they get older, they'll support me because they'll become wiser. That's 100% what he's saying there. And I get that he's frustrated that so far young voters are not flocking to him, but I would say that you can't just expect that because you happen to be young, and he is young, I believe he's younger than me actually, that they're just gonna support you based on your identity as a younger person. No, they are smart and savvy. I would say far more so than older generations. They don't get just like I guess bamboozled by rhetoric or the fact that he speaks a lot of languages or that there's good coverage of him in the media. They seem to like him. No, they actually care about the content of your proposals. Like, it's not like Bernie Sanders has some sort of natural appeal outside of ideology and values and policy, and we can't help but love Bernie. No, it's because he's right on the issues. He's right, and he's specifically right. He speaks about it in a compassionate way about these policies, in an impassioned way. We believe him, there's authenticity there. That's something that can't be bought. We can see that almost immediately when we see a politician talking. And so I can do the same thing. When I'm watching Pete Buttigieg there and I see him just casually brushing off those admittedly hard questions. That's the most harsh I've seen with CBS, one of these mainstream shows, be to Pete Buttigieg. Look at the little smile on his face. I know that I'm biased. I've endorsed Bernie Sanders. I'm not a fan of Buttigieg. But am I wrong in saying that is smugness through and through? Like, oh yeah, the young voters don't love me, whatever. I'm building a coalition, something. Well, look, he is building something, that's true. The last couple of days, he's been in New York. He's been talking to Wall Street bankers and executives, and he's been raising a ton of money. That's what he's been doing. He's not specific about what sort of coalition, by the way. Perhaps that's the one he means. But are you surprised that young voters don't find that appealing? That at the same time that Bernie Sanders is with unions and he's walking the lines with them, he's fighting for workers' rights, Pete Buttigieg is trying to get more millionaires to support his candidacy? Maybe that's something to look into. And thankfully the media is actually starting to do that. And this is not totally unexpected. The media, they love constancy. They love the idea that we could go back to a comfortable status quo, but they also love drama. And so, yes, they're gonna raise up Pete Buttigieg, but that gets boring after a while. At some point, they will be forced by their drive for ratings to ask some hard questions. That process looks like it's begun. And I would say that so far, Pete Buttigieg has shown a real lack of ability to deal with that without coming out looking like a smug, entitled politician. Thank you for watching this clip from The Damage Report. For more content from the show and access to TYT Network members-only exclusives, go to tyt.com/Brooke. Wait, no, it's tyt.com/John. Go to tyt.com/John to sign up.